The war had ended years ago, but its echoes still lingered in the far reaches of the galaxy. Planets once torn by battles now bore the quiet scars of devastation, and alliances forged in desperation had slowly transformed into uneasy peace. Among these planets was Kalira, the home of the ruling alien race known as the Ilari. Their queen, a figure of unmatched authority and elegance, had ruled for decades with a mind as sharp as her instincts were lethal. Yet today she sat in her private chambers silent, as a single name drifted through the air like an invisible dagger. The human soldier's name, Marcus, was spoken with a mixture of reverence and disbelief by one of her closest advisors. He had survived battles that even the most skilled Ilari warriors deemed fatal, and his exploits had reached across systems as stories of human determination and courage. Yet none of that prepared her for the day she would hear it directly in the presence of those who had witnessed history firsthand. "Queen Alara," the advisor said carefully, sensing the sudden tension in the room, "you are aware of what has arrived on the outer rim? A human vessel has entered our space." Ilara's eyes, usually sharp and unyielding, remained fixed on a crystal display that shimmered with the trajectory of the ship. Her silence was not unexpected. The Ilari were known for their composure in all matters, yet this calmness seemed different. Her breathing slowed almost imperceptibly, and her claws tightened around the edge of her seat. "The name?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. The advisor hesitated. "Marcus," he said, emphasizing the syllable as if the name alone could measure the weight of his presence. At that moment, the room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing closer as Alara's mind raced back through years of memory. Marcus was no ordinary human. She had seen the footage once, years ago, when a Yulari contingent had been ambushed on the fringes of a star system. A handful of soldiers had fallen under the coordinated assault of the human fleet, and yet one figure had stood, moving with precision and strategy that rivaled Ilari generals. That figure was Marcus. Alara had expected fear, respect, even curiosity, but silence consumed her instead. She could not find words, and for the first time in decades she felt uncertainty. "Prepare the chamber," she said finally, her voice steadier but still measured. "I will meet him." The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. None had seen the queen react in such a way. Most Ilari leaders might have dismissed a human with a polite warning or a tactical maneuver, but Alara's reaction suggested a deep understanding, a recognition that transcended ordinary rivalry. As the human vessel approached, the Ilari fleet observed quietly. Marcus's ship was smaller than most military crafts, its design streamlined for agility rather than sheer firepower. Yet despite its size, the ship moved with confidence, weaving through patrols and scanning systems with a precision that spoke of experience. Alara watched as the vessel docked in the grand spaceport reserved for distinguished visitors. Her guards, all seasoned warriors, waited silently by her side. When Marcus stepped onto the observation platform, the human's uniform sharp against the polished metal, the queen noticed the same calm determination in his eyes that had made him legendary across galaxies. The chamber doors opened, and Marcus entered. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that the Ilari had taught themselves to appreciate when humans engaged in diplomacy. Yet Alara did not respond immediately. She studied him, her gaze sweeping from the disciplined stance to the subtle confidence in his movements. "Queen Alara," Marcus said, his voice steady and respectful. "It is an honor to meet you." The queen remained silent, the room heavy with anticipation. Marcus's presence was not intimidating in the traditional sense, yet the weight of his reputation pressed upon her. He was a human, small in stature compared to her kind, but every story, every account she had encountered painted a picture of a soldier who could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast even the most elite Ilari warriors. "You have no reason to fear," Marcus continued, sensing the tension. "I come not as a conqueror, but as one who wishes to speak, to understand." Alara finally moved, her claws folding gently as she gestured toward a seat. "Sit," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. "Speak, human. Tell me why you have entered Ilari space unannounced." Marcus seated himself with careful precision. "My mission is simple," he began. "Years ago I witnessed the cost of war, the lives lost on both sides. I have since dedicated myself to peace where possible. I have come to offer my aid not as a soldier, but as a witness, a negotiator, and a bridge." The queen considered his words, her mind racing through countless scenarios. Trusting a human was risky, yet Marcus's record was impossible to ignore. Time and again, he had defied expectations, survived situations that seemed hopeless, and protected those who could not defend themselves. "You speak of peace," Ilara said finally, "and yet humans are known for their unpredictability. Why should I believe you will not turn this moment into an opportunity to strike?" Marcus's eyes met hers directly, unwavering. "Because I have nothing to gain from conflict. My victories are not for pride or power. They are for life, for survival, for the chance to ensure that others do not suffer as I have seen." The Queen's mind drifted back to the first time she had seen him in action. The Ilari fleet had been ambushed in a dense asteroid field, trapped by a human force that outnumbered them 3-1. Most of her warriors had expected defeat, yet Marcus's strategies turned desperation into triumph. Not once had he sought glory, not once had he acted out of malice. His skill was matched only by his compassion, a combination the Ilari had never encountered in their history of war. "You are bold," she said slowly, "and yet you have no fear in a room with a Ilari queen?" Marcus shrugged slightly, a gesture of humility. "Fear is natural. It is a tool, not a limitation. What matters is what you choose to do with it." Ilara studied him for a long moment. She could see the truth in his words, a reflection of countless stories she had been told by soldiers and citizens alike. Marcus was not a man to be underestimated, yet he was not a threat in the traditional sense. His strength lay in understanding, not domination. "You speak of understanding," the Queen said, leaning back slightly. "Then tell me, human, why should we trust your kind after the wars? After the destruction you have wrought across systems?" Marcus did not flinch. "Because we learn. Because we adapt. Because some of us choose to rise above what others expect. I am here to prove that not all humans are driven by conquest. Some are driven by responsibility, by the desire to make right what once went wrong." Ilara remained silent, the weight of his words settling over her like a tangible presence. For decades she had ruled with certainty, guided by the traditions of her people and the history of war. And yet here was a human, small in comparison, yet commanding attention, respect, and thought through nothing more than clarity, purpose, and presence. "Your reputation precedes you," she said finally, her voice quieter than before. "I have heard stories, accounts of your skill, your survival, your unwavering resolve. I have seen the footage, yet meeting you is different." Marcus inclined his head. "I do not seek to overwhelm you, Queen Ilara, only to offer what I can. If my presence brings unease, then I will depart. But if you allow me, I wish to aid in securing a future where humans and Ilari need not be enemies." The Queen's claws relaxed, and she allowed herself a long breath. Silence lingered as she processed the enormity of the moment. Here was a human, a species her people had once considered unpredictable and often reckless, yet standing with a purpose so pure that it demanded acknowledgement. "Your presence. It is unprecedented," she said finally. "I am unaccustomed to humans who act without the expectation of personal gain. You challenge the assumptions of my people, of our history." Marcus nodded. "History is not unchangeable. What we do now shapes what comes next." For the first time in years, Ilara allowed a small sense of wonder to enter her mind. Perhaps humans were not merely unpredictable. Perhaps they were capable of something greater than she had imagined. The stories had been true, yet they had failed to capture the essence of what Marcus embodied. Courage, intelligence, compassion, and resilience combined in a way that even the most seasoned Ilari generals found remarkable. "Very well," she said finally, her tone firm but carrying an undercurrent of curiosity. "You will remain in my chambers while we discuss your proposals. I will listen, human, though do not assume my silence is agreement." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "I do not assume. I am here to earn your trust, nothing more." The Queen leaned back in her seat, her eyes tracing the contours of his disciplined posture. For the first time, the weight of history felt lighter, as if the past battles and betrayals could be reconciled through dialogue and understanding. Marcus, in his quiet and unwavering way, had presented a possibility the Ilari had not considered. A human not as an adversary, but as an ally. A partner in shaping a future that did not repeat the horrors of war. Days turned into hours as they spoke, discussing strategies, peacekeeping, and the ways humans and Ilari could work together. Each conversation revealed more about Marcus, about his motives, his experiences, and the principles that guided him. The Queen listened, sometimes skeptical, sometimes intrigued, always aware of the subtle ways he challenged her assumption.